Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from Sandi Cook. And Sandi has this question: what do you do when the gods who have called you come from two different pantheons? And my answer to this is, well, you answer them, of course. If they are worthy of being called gods, they already know the conditions that you are in and other connections you may have, and they have made the choice to call you anyway. It's not your place to second guess them. And I think that there are certainly many people who would give you a different answer, and I think they're wrong. In my experience, they definitely are, although I do believe you can censor your relationship to deity and force it to conform to your preconceptions. But I think that unless you're doing that, if a deity comes to you, it already knows where you are and is not going to object to that, or it would not have come. Now, I also want to make a point about pantheons, and I use this term as well, and I do want to say, however, that actual pagans would not have understood this concept. It is a modern academic concept for the purpose of classifying deities for study, and really has nothing to do with how ancient pagan peoples related to their deities. The idea of this kind of formal pantheon has more to do with Judeo-Christian thought than with pagan thought. Pagans were importing and exporting deities all the time in pretty much all pagan cultures. And I do not think they would have understood the concept of pantheon in the D&D sense. Now, they certainly did know which deities were commonly worshipped by their people versus foreign deities, but that's not really the same thing. There was no big book of gods that said you may only look at these gods and not these, and most of the people in these cultures were pretty wide-ranging, at least on occasion, in terms of the deities they dealt with. And you can see this from the very beginning of those people who kept records in ancient Egypt. When Amenhotep III had a message from Ishtar, he had no hesitation incorporating her worship into his country. When you look at many of the great Egyptian deities, a number of them are thought to have had origins either from North Africa, such as Libya, or the Levant, and they certainly imported deities throughout their history, as well as their indigenous deities. If you look at Greece, many of the Greek deities do not originate in Greece. Hecate, the patroness of witches in particular, they knew perfectly well was not an indigenous Greek deity. Many of them thought she came from Thrace. Other scholars of the ancient world thought she came from Phrygia. Some thought she came from Egypt and was identical with the Egyptian goddess Hecate, particularly during the Ptolemaic period. And which is true, we don't know. But we do know that they did not consider her to have come from the area they considered to be Greece. Persephone is another major deity who is thought to have originated farther east. Poseidon originated in Libya. These people were definitely importing and exporting their deities, and their practice did not say to them, no, you cannot look at this deity whose origin is different. If you look at the Romans, this is even more pronounced. As their empire spread, they brought in more and more deities. But early on, they brought in Cybele, the Magna Mater, and did not particularly scruple that she did not come from their indigenous deities. In fact, most of the deities we associate with Rome were not the earlier deities of that empire. If you look at the Flamen system, you'll see that the deities who had flamens, the ancient deities of Rome, some of them we know nothing but their name. Others, like Jupiter, remained important, but many of them faded from common knowledge even in the early empire, as the Greek deities tended to take their place. And later they brought in other deities as well. They did not have a big book saying, you cannot look at these deities and only can look at these. That really isn't a pagan concept. And I know there are a lot of people who will swear that it is, and that you must choose your deities as if you're playing D&D, and that they can only come from this chapter and not that chapter. And I've certainly met people who swear that deities from different cultures can't get along in their altars, but I've also met other people worshiping those very same deities where they did get along. So my advice is don't tell your deity what you think it can and cannot do, but listen to what it tells you it can do. And if two deities from very different cultures have called to you, they know about each other, if they're worthy of being called deities. And they have already made their accommodations. So my answer is that if you are called by deities from vastly different backgrounds, answer. And that would be my opinion. I hope you find it helpful. And until next time, may you blessed be.